wasn't trying to make that right with my situation.
Yeah.
At the time. Kia, that I'm saying.
Okay.
So
the first baby.
The first baby mother.
Okay.
Because, man, we caught like COVID in 2020. I mean, inseparable. Just, man.
That's the best way.
You feel me? Like, bro, we jumped off the porch and was just like inseparable. And then that's where she was like, I can't stay with you because I got to go take care of my daughter. I was like, man, look, we're going to make this a family. That was my pursuit then because I come from that.
Yeah.
Stay with me. I come from that.
So you wanted that because that's what you saw.
Always wanted that. Still to this day, I want family. I believe in family. I don't have no friends. I've made this a public service announcement. I don't have friends. I have family.
Okay.
Straight up. And if my daddy got your number, you're no longer a friend to me.
Your family.
Your family.
Yeah.
Because even with that, that's the most influential man in my life. That's the most influential person in my life. So if he gives the hat tip to, then that's my gatekeeper. Keeping it about accountability.
All right.
I know what a woman is supposed to be. That's not to throw no shade. That's not to say that she wasn't that. I would resort both parties being immature and wanting the title more than the actual nuances of what it actually takes to be a healthy relationship.
Can I ask you this?
Yes.
What?
Wow. Cam Newton has spoken quite a bit here. Look, on the surface of things, Cam Newton gives us quite an expulsion that sounds like he is very eloquent and understanding and self-aware. And I do believe he is self-aware. He talks about his fame and his success and how it changed him. He talks about the multiple kids. He talks about how he understood because he came from a two-parent household, right? And how happy it was and how good he saw his parents together. Whilst I do believe that to be some case of truth, I do believe that also he's stretching it. He's stretching it because he's not being vulnerable in terms of actually what he saw and witnessed in his actual household. Actually, that would be me also jumping in a little bit too soon. The reason why I say that is because a lot of times when it comes to dismissive avoidance, and by the way, that's an attachment style and the way that we emotionally create bonds, dismissive people tend to dismiss their own emotions and dismiss their emotional needs because they were dismissed as kids and their emotional needs. So they almost come off very hyper independent. And what that does is that aspect of a mindset where you dismiss things means also the way you look at events in your past is to glamorize it and add a sparkle to it because you've taken the emotion out of that event. And so what I'm hearing from him is, I know what a good thing to do is. I know what the better thing to do is. I know what the right thing to do is. I know what a good two-family parent household looks like. Yet I chose to do something differently. Why? Why would you do something different than what you've been trained to do? Oh, sometimes it's because you think you know better, but actually sometimes also too because what you actually experienced wasn't great, and you're not able to really fully articulate what actually happened to you. And so what's happening within you is this shame and the rebellion cycle that's birthed out of shame. And a lack of ability for you to really look deeper into your actual wounds. And so the reason why he has 3 baby mothers, I believe, is actually not because he's making bad choices. It's because for Cam Newton, what's happened is he actually knows better, but can't do better because he doesn't have the tools to do better. Now that's scary. If you have the tool, if you have the know-how, but you don't have the tools to do so, you're actually still in a prison. So you make it sound good to us as an audience, but actually you're still trapped. So let's talk a little bit about attachment styles and talk a little bit about Cam Newton. If you're new to attachment styles, let me break it down to you. Attachment styles is simply the way that we emotionally bond in relationships. It was birthed from a man called John Bowlby, who was witnessing how young children dealt with their caregivers and how the child dealt with separation anxiety. The caregiver would leave the room and they would come back and they would monitor how the child reacted to them. Dismissive avoidant children specifically, they have a very nonchalant, they're almost not fazed by the parent leaving or coming. Why? Because they've learned already that their emotional needs were never met by the parent. So whether they come or go, they have to be hyper independent and depend on themselves, not on the caregiver. And what that does is that it breeds an area of suppression and repression of their own emotional needs. Now, with Cam Newton, the mistake of having 3 baby mothers, it's not a mistake. He chose it because he tells us that he has full knowledge of what he's doing. And if he has full knowledge of what he's doing, then why is he doing what he's doing? Well, the reality is no matter how much full knowledge you have, you need wisdom. You need to know how to use the knowledge that you have. You may have knowledge, but you may not have the full understanding or the wisdom to be able to do something different. You know it's a fork, but you don't know how to use it. And so in the same sense, he may know what a happy relationship looks like, a good one, but doesn't know how to bring that to pass. That's in itself its own prison with those who are dismissive. Now, before you look at Cam Newton and think to yourself, I'm completely different, Look at your own life. What areas of your life are you struggling in where you know to do better, but you can't do better, or you don't do better, right? So we're going to break that down for you guys in this particular video. So make sure you like, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification uploads. We're going to drop an intro and we're going to get into this.
Black book. You know what time it is.
I mean, I was going to do an intro, but the intro takes too long. All right, cool. Let's get into this. Intro done failed me, baby. All right, let's get into this. So point number one is this. There's always an internal conflict between what he knows and what he chooses. Okay. He says, I knew what a good marriage could look like, but I chose differently. And I think this is really interesting. This is point number one, that it's suggesting that you have awareness without the ability to integrate, the know-how. Okay. And so that is definitely an avoidant attachment style. And so intellectually, because a lot of avoidants deal with intellectualism, they're very intellectual because they've intellectualized their past events. So when you ever ask an avoidant what they went through, they will intellectualize it. They will reiterate to you exactly what happened to them. And you'll be like, wow. And it sounds so good until you actually clock it and realize there was a lack of emotion in what they described. They intellectualize everything. So they might tell you one or two emotions, but you'll feel a coldness from what they're saying. Like, oh, my sister passed and I can tell that it affected the family. You're like, wow, he's so deep and he's so he's so understanding. But you're realizing that if you listen long enough, you're not connecting to the conversation because there's no emotions behind what they're saying. Okay. And so because for Cam Newton, having 3 baby mothers means that he has the ability to spread the risk of somebody engulfing him across the board. What does that mean? I mean, in the sense of having 3 baby mothers means you don't have to emotionally depend on any of these women for too long. If any of them mess up, you can move to the next one and the next one, right? So if you get rejected from one, you can go to the other 2. And that's one of the biggest things for avoidance is that they're afraid of being rejected. So his big fear is losing his independence, being trapped, and emotionally having to be committed to somebody, right? He deals with low stakes relationships. How do we know that? Because he's able to talk about how great a marriage is and how great a relationship of monogamy is and how great it is to have a man and a woman, but never actually fulfills it. He has 3 baby mothers, one after the other, and each time he never prepared a ring. Or at least maybe if he did, he never actually married a person. And so we're hearing he knows what to do. We're hearing, oh, how great marriage can be, but he's never actually pursued it. Okay. Number 2 is actually what his father did. And this is what really prompted me to look at in terms of the contribution his father made and how it's actually impacted him. Listen to how he speaks about his father's experience with him.
Me no more. And now I'm here to figure out this thing called life with a young nigga from Atlanta that got money, that got clout, that got status, and got it all. So my dad, like, he would have these sermons and it would be so awkward. But when you ever been to church and you'd be like, man, he talking to me. He would make it so intentional. He would say, no, you know what? Cam, come on down. That's who my dad is. So when you're talking about embarrassing, I don't know how to feel embarrassed because that's what my family do. We're going to put you on the front street.
Okay.
But the fact that he said that we don't know how to feel embarrassed tells me he knows how to feel embarrassed. So what you've done is you've minimalized how you actually felt. You were embarrassed by what he did. And he said, that's how my dad's always been. That tells us something. As a child, when you're shamed and embarrassed by a parent, what that tends to do is that the child starts to learn it's no longer a safe space to be able to express themselves fully with the person in front of them. So what a child may learn to do is that their needs emotionally cannot be safely presented to the caregiver. So what do? Suppress your needs and dismiss it. Okay. Now, remember, he told us his father is the most influential person to him. So that very influential person who publicly embarrasses him on a pulpit, that's a position of power, by the way, as well. Not only a father, but a position of power. All right. When Cam says, oh, that's just family stuff, we just do that normally, he's minimalizing the significant impact of being embarrassed. When we talk about emotional safety is the ability to be able to to be able to speak your emotions, your opinions, your thoughts, your ideas, okay, without the fear of embarrassment, shame, guilt, harm, or punishment. So if you're being embarrassed for showing up, if you're being embarrassed for some of your sins or whatever, right, and you've experienced that since you were a child, guess what happens? There's no room to also make mistakes, because if you make mistakes, you're going to be embarrassed. Now, you can go the complete opposite way, which is what he says in another video about how the reason why he did this is because he was in a state of rebellion. He knew better, but he chose differently. The reason why is because he's actually not put two and two together. A lot of dismissive avoidants are angry. It's called silent anger. What does that mean? It means that actually you are brewing within yourself and you're angry. And your anger is presented as numbness. It's presented as criticalness, skepticism. It is presented as being withdrawn, being isolated, and then also rebellion. Why? Because the person who was your authority figure no longer was a safe space for you. And actually what they've taught you is you need to go your own way. Don't trust them and don't trust no human being. Because one of the biggest things for dismissive avoidance is they don't trust nobody. You know how I know? I'm one of them. Okay. So the minimalization is a classic defense move, playing down his emotions, because again, we don't want to be ruled by emotions. Dismissive avoidant people do not want to be ruled by their emotions. And to help them protect their vulnerability is to intellectualize the emotion. His father, who's meant to be an authority figure, high expectations, moral standard, who sets the bar at a high level, is the same one shaming him. And so making him feel like actually to be emotional is to be unsafe. To be emotional is to be weak. To be emotional is to be embarrassed. How's that going to ever be a safe space for you? So we're not choosing three-way mothers. We don't feel safe with three-way mothers because we're never ever feeling like the person who's in front of us can actually hold our vulnerability, because all you've ever experienced in your vulnerability is you to be exposed. And so when I fail, I get publicly corrected rather than privately supported. See, even though the person may be doing wrong, the fact that his father would publicly shame him or embarrass him, he's probably done that a lot in public in past events too. African parents love doing this as well. I'm sure you guys are African American will know this as well. Parents that will shame you in school, like, oh, you're bad, and I'll shame you in front of the whole school. They think they're doing a great job by parenting you and by disciplining you. And all they're actually doing is they're causing you to feel emotionally unsafe. You want to punish me? Wait till I get home, punish me then. A lot of our mothers did that. They give you the look. That means when we get home, I'm going to punish you, right? And so that's really important that you get that public correction that he got was actually about shaming him rather than actually correcting him. And so this creates what we call the shame avoidance cycle, where you avoid accountability, or you rationalize your accountability, rationalize your vulnerability, you rationalize your decisions, but you actually never actually change, which is what the key thing is about accountability. Okay. Number 3, rebellion as a trauma adaptation. The rebellion comes from the anger within. And I said this earlier on, so I want to explain it a bit more. When we talk about anger, being withdrawn, being numb, being skeptical, being critical, being in a state of isolation, are feelings underneath the spectrum of anger. What does that mean? It means that when people get into a space of implosion versus explosion, when we talk about emotional regulation for dismissive avoidance, what's happening is the failure to process their actual emotions, which means to work it through, go to ask questions, why, when, how, and what is the reason why I'm having these emotions. And sometimes what we do is we bypass that, go all the way around it, say, forget about it. I'm not asking those questions. I just want to have emotions, because emotions are not safe and emotions are trying to rule me, and I can't have anything rule me. And so what ends up happening is, because we don't deal with the feelings that we have, emotions we have, and we package it, we screw the lid tight, and we pull it away, what ends up happening is it starts to leak. And as it begins to leak, one day it turns into what we call resentment or rebellion. And that rebellion is that we go against the very training and what we know to be true and good and successful. We will choose something that's going to actually sabotage us. Why? Because we're angry. And now anger isn't an issue. It's the adaptation of the exploration of the expression of that particular action. I said that very poetically. It's just the expression of the action. Okay. And so for the dismissive avoidant, okay, the child learns that I'm only loved when I am successful. For instance, Cam is a football player. Maybe the only love he got was I think he even spoke about this, that, you know, his dad didn't necessarily say good, job well done. Often it's more of a case of, you know, at very intermittent times. So that breeds what we call conditional love, where performance love. And rebellion comes because we want autonomy from that feeling. Let me say it again. The father or the mother that has hurt you and has not met your emotional needs, the rebellion comes because we're trying to free ourselves. Wow, Holy Spirit, thank you. We're trying to free ourselves from the expectations and the wanting of that parent to show us the love and affection we have. So a lot of people's rebellion is born out of no longer wanting to be succumbed to the emotions and the feelings of, I want this from you. Mom, Dad, I want this love from you. I want this protection from you. And when they get tired and they get annoyed, they go into rebellion. And rebellion is an implosion that can turn to an explosion. Implosion means to go inward, and the anger starts to explode within that causes actions for you to go elsewhere. Basically, avoidance. And so, if you expect me to perform perfectly, if you expect me to just take chastisement, if you expect me just to be this perfect person, right? I'll choose to do the opposite. Though I know better, though I know marriage is not this, marriage is better for me, I'm going to choose to do a different thing because I'm angry at you and I'm hurt by you. And so I'm actually consciously choosing to sabotage myself in order to remove myself from the pain that I feel having to be attached to you. My God, I'm receiving a revelation as I say this right now. Father, just heal me in the name of Jesus. Because wow, it's making me think. Yeah. Number 4, repeated uncommitted relationships. So this is called what we call an emotional deactivation or emotional distancing strategy from Cam Newton. He intentionally has 3 baby mothers, like I said, because he wants to have a pot that he can keep going into whenever one rejects him. One of the biggest fears for a dismissive avoidant is rejection. Their biggest fear is being rejected. And so what they tend to do is they can create pots, what we call compartmentalize, or in this instance, create different homes, so that if he gets rejected by Jasmine one day, if Jasmine's acting up and being too emotional, I don't have to deal with Jasmine. I'll go to another house. I don't have to deal with Kia. I'll go to another house. And so actually, we're spreading ourselves across the board to remove the risk of being succumbed to one person who we care about so much that they can affect us. And if they decide they're not going to give us the love and affection we want, we'll be at their mercy. And remember, the child is coming from a home where they were at the mercy of the parent, the authoritative figure. So they're not trying to put themselves back in that place again once more. This is why he's uncommittal in relationships, talking about, I know better, but not doing better. This is why you yourself are in relationships where you can't commit fully, or when you do commit, you're always having to have emotional control where you don't give all yourself. You say, I'm going to give myself 80%. I'll give them 20%. I'll give them 40% of me. I won't give them all. No one deserves all of me, because if they have all of me, that's not a true, that means I can be hurt. I can be broken. I can be damaged all over again. But while you're doing that, you're trying to exert control. Okay, so emotional proximity here, he has emotional proximity without the vulnerability or the commitment. And so having multiple children is a commitment, but it's not the commitment that the party actually needs, which is a marriage, a ring. It is that kind of commitment for them. Okay, instead he says family. Right, so he's creating connections on his own terms. He said he wants family. And rather than addressing the pain that he feels from his father, he is now taking that pain out and utilizing it on his woman. Number 5, the last point, is there's a deep longing for stability, but the fear of losing control. And so wanting to be stable, wanting to have the emotional connection, because one of the things that dismissive avoidants struggle with is that they want the connection, but when it gets too close, it's like, I have to push you away. You're doing too much. You're going to engulf me. You're going to trap me. You're going to overtake me. I'm going to lose my independence. And so despite his behavior, Cam still values his father's presence, like he told us already, and spiritual influence. And so that's the stability and the guidance he's getting. But he fears being able to surrender to somebody. Why? Because he surrendered at one point and he was hurt by his father, right? Or was hurt by the marriage that he saw with his parents. And so in that space, for him, surrendering into somebody else in a relationship is a no-go. Okay? Right? So he longs for emotional connection and closeness, but he fears it. He feels unsafe. And instead, so he builds these families so he can control them, and so that he can receive the emotional validation that he requires and emotional bonds that he requires without necessarily giving the same back. Because they were looking for commitment one day, but he hasn't given that to them. Even Jasmine Brown still has now got a second baby, but no ring. So it's like a false connection. Like, I'm connected to him, but are you really? Because actually, he's not married you. He's not trying to marry you. So Cam Newton is not making just bad decisions. Actually, is reflecting the fact that he has dismissive avoidant wounds. And so the conditional childhood love, shame and avoidance, the rebellion, the fear of control, the emotional distancing, and the relationships that he's existed in are ways of him actually acting out some of the pain that he has. And now when I mention pain, that doesn't mean we have to doesn't mean we have to ignore the fact that he's actually hurt other people in the process. It's just to kind of highlight the fact that you may be doing the exact same thing. So listen, if you're new here, make sure you like, share, subscribe, click on that bell button. Now, I'm obviously coaching, and I've been coaching for the last 2 years. but we're back open again. And so if you want to be coached, first and foremost, book a free discovery call. It's 30 minutes. Let's find out if we can actually help you, what you're actually looking for. Let's talk about your goals and expectations, and let's see if I can match that as a coach before we go any further and book you into anything, okay? It's non-committal, all right? Just like Cam Newton is at the moment. I appreciate you guys. Stay locked, stay loaded. We'll see you again very soon. Don't do anything I would do, okay?